Have you ever looked at an app on your phone and wondered, how did this go from just an idea to something I can actually use? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on a super important but often invisible role that makes all of that happen. We're talking about the business analyst. We'll break down exactly who they are, what they do, and why they're basically the secret ingredient to building amazing software.
Right. It's the big question in the tech world. You've got this vision, a real business need, maybe even a game-changing idea. But then what? How do you take that concept and turn it into thousands of lines of code that a team of developers can actually build? I mean, that is a huge gap to cross.
And this is exactly where our hero, the business analyst, or BA for short, steps in. Think of them as professional communicators, expert translators. They are the architects of understanding. Their whole job is to make sure that the business vision becomes a technical reality without anything getting lost in translation.
So, here's our game plan. First, we're going to really nail down that core job of being a translator. Then, we'll explore the two different worlds BAs work in, product versus service companies. After that, we'll follow the journey of an idea from a simple proposal all the way to a full-blown project. And finally, we'll see how BAs masterfully handle risk and quality to keep the whole thing on track. All right, first up, the business tech translator. Let's get right to the heart of what a BA truly does day in and day out. The best way to think about a BA is as a central communication hub. They have to be fluent in two completely different languages. There's the language of business, we're talking goals, revenue, what the users need, and then there's the language of technology, features, databases, user stories. The BA's entire job is to translate between those two worlds, making sure the tech team builds the right thing for all the right reasons. Okay, so this translator role, it doesn't just exist in a vacuum. Where a BA works, the type of company they're in, totally shapes their day-to-day. So let's look at the two main places you'll find them. So you've got two main playgrounds for software. On one side, you have product companies. Think Microsoft or SAP. They dream up, build, and own their own software, and they sell it to tons of different customers. But on the other side, you have service companies, like a Infosys or a Wipro. They get hired by other companies to build custom solutions, and in the end, the client owns the final product. Now here's where it gets really interesting for the BA. In a product company, a BA is a master of their product. They're always thinking about how to improve it for a huge market of users. But in a service company, the BA becomes an expert in their client's business because they're tailoring a completely unique solution just for that one client. Two very different jobs. So how does an idea actually get the green light, become a funded official project? Let's trace that journey from a simple business need all the way to a signed contract. It often kicks off with something called an RFP, a request for proposal. That's just a client saying, hey, we have a problem we need to solve. Then IT companies respond with an RFI, showing they have the skills to help. Then comes the RFQ, the bid, where they put a price tag on it. After the client checks out all the options, a final contract, the SOW, or Statement of Work, gets signed. And just like that, a project is officially born. With the contract signed, we can finally move inside the project itself. This is where the BA really rolls up their sleeves and gets to work with the rest of the team. A typical project team is this mix of key players. You've got the project manager, who's kind of the captain steering the ship. You have the developers who are actually building the software. Quality assurance folks are there to make sure it all works. And right there in the middle of it all are the business analysts, making sure that what's being built is what the client actually needed in the first place. And their presence is a big deal. On a lot of teams, BAs can make up 12 to 16% of the entire team. That's a serious investment, and it shows you just how crucial it is to get those requirements right from the very beginning. Projects also tend to come in two main flavors, financially speaking. You've got fixed bid projects, where the scope, the time, and the cost are all locked in from the start. It's predictable, for sure, but it's also really rigid. Then you have billing projects, where the client just pays for the team's time. This allows for way more flexibility as the project goes on and things inevitably change. Of course, projects are absolutely full of potential traps. There's the dreaded scope creep. That's when new features just keep getting added on and on. There's poor user involvement, which is how you end up building something nobody actually wants to use. And sometimes it's just plain bad planning. A skilled BA is your first line of defense against all of this, managing expectations and keeping communication crystal clear to avoid these exact problems. All right, finally, let's look at where BAs provide some serious strategic value.
by managing the two things that can make or break any project: quality and risk.
To make sure the final product is top-notch, development doesn't just happen in a free-for-all. Projects are usually guided by these really rigorous industry frameworks like CMMI, ISO, and Six Sigma. They're all about maintaining high standards and consistency from start to finish. But hey, even with the best plans in the world, things can go wrong. And that's where risk comes in. So what is risk? Well, it's pretty simple. It's any potential event, could be technical, could be business related, that could derail a project's schedule, its budget, or its ultimate success. BAs manage this with a really clear, structured process. First, they go on a hunt to identify any potential risks. Then they assess the likelihood of each one happening and what the impact would be. From there, they plan a response and formally rate the risk to prioritize what needs the most attention. So once a risk is understood, there are basically 4 ways to handle it. You can just accept it and say, you know what, we'll live with it. You can transfer it to someone else, like buying insurance. You could try to avoid it by changing your plans completely. Or, and this is the most common one, you mitigate it by taking action to reduce its chances of happening or to lessen the blow if it does.
And this all brings us to the ultimate truth of the business analyst job, and I think this quote just says it all. No project plan ever survives contact with reality. Requirements will change. The goal isn't to create some perfect static plan that never moves. It's about building a process to manage that constant change gracefully. And that is the true art and science of being a great business analyst.